all for joining this session today about SIEM and NDR and how to use those technologies to boost your threat detection. We're very excited to see all of you joining us. And Esben, if you can change to the next slide. So for those of you who might not know Logpoint as well, we are a originally Danish company, so we are a cybersecurity company that's built in, that's made in Europe. We are our headquarters is based in Copenhagen, and we are a SIEM and NDR vendor. So that's just a little quick intro to who we are. Today we'll be talking about SIEM and NDR, and we will go through like a quick intro to what is SIEM and NDR, and then looking into the evolving threat landscape right now. And then my good colleague Paul, he will do a live demo of how NDR and SIEM actually looks in action. And at the end, we will have like a quick Q&A and some closing remarks. During this session, if you have any questions that come up, please put them in the Q&A box and we will be able to go through them at the end. If you have any technical difficulties, just put them into the chat. You can chat directly to me, Paul, and Esben. In the meantime, I will hand over to my good colleagues. And before we my good colleagues are Paul, who is our Director of Customer Engagement. And then I also have Esben with me, who's our Global Sales Manager and specializes in our NDR technology. And I will also, because we want to make sure that we're kind of understanding where you guys are coming from and where you are in your NDR and SIEM journey. So a quick poll, just to see where you are, and then you can plot in where you are, and then we can also start hearing from Paul. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Interesting. I think we're still receiving some answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, I think it confirms, I guess, how we actually prepared today's webinar, giving a bit more deeper insight on the NDR topic, because that seems to be where there's still need maybe for some more awareness, and of course combining this view together with the SIEM part obviously is today's topic.
Yeah.
So this is great.
Yeah, perfect. I will end the poll and then you guys can take it from here. Paul?
Okay,
Yes.
well, Esben,
I will.
Perfect.
So we'll take a look at the threat landscape really quick. And to be honest, it's not a lot different to how it was, over the last few years. There's always going to be phishing. The malware evolves a little bit. I think in 2025, certainly for Europe, ransomware was one of the big things. And the malware companies really are looking at, well, they're organizing themselves as businesses now. So it means you can pretty much get off the shelf malware. The malware suites, they're all getting consolidated. So you'll find common strains across the different stacks. And what they're trying to do these days is what we call living off the land attacks or low and slow attacks. The idea here is you use known tools, so things that you use in your day-to-day life to try and do something that would evade the detection. So just to understand people doing port scans or whatever it is, we will be able to spot things like that in any case. I think the most recent change in this is AI now you can start using for your attacks, which is quite nice. So things like Kali GPT, you've probably heard of it in the last month or two. Why would you try and learn the tools even when you can get AI to do the attacks for you? So that's basically the game there. So it just makes everything a lot easier for the attacker. but hopefully you'll be able to spot it on the reverse side. If you want to know about the threat landscape in general, Logpoint have a brilliant blog about this. So we have a security research team here that really look deeply into different campaigns, and you'll be able to find a lot of information about it. So just go to the URL that you see at the top there, or look for Logpoint blog, and you'll be able to get some information. The game a lot is to try and evade your EDR as well. So if you've got an EDR in your network, we'll try and evade that too. The cool thing there is the way that Logpoint do this is slightly different. So most companies, you will see it's a combination of EDR vendor and maybe SIEM these days. But the way we're doing it is NDR with SIEM. NDR, once you put it on the network, it is going to see something. You can't really evade it. It's not like it's a piece of code that you can go and evade. The only way to evade it, I mean, you can try and encrypt, but that in itself is kind of something to look at. So if we have even the IP addresses and we know what somebody's going to and from, and we probably even know the port, then it gives us a jumping box to start looking into what's going on with the network. So when I go to the demo a little bit later, you'll see that NDR, it's going to be able to find patterns. Those patterns will help you initiate the threat hunts. The game is, we'll get the NDR alerts basically onto the SIEM, and then the SIEM would take alerts from other things. So not just NDR, but you might even have EDR, you might have server logs or whatever it is. And then you can get a bigger picture as to what's happening on the network. But the starting point is the NDR, as I'm going to show you later. So we can see the patterns that look things like, is the malware phoning home? We've got an AI component to the NDR that can basically say what's normal in your network and then spot what's different. And again, that gives you a start to be able to go threat hunting yourself. And as I say, encryption is the key to avoiding the NDR. But honestly, if you're going to go encrypting stuff, then that gives you the jump box. And if we've got all of the server logs as well on the SIEM, then actually it's much harder to evade us. So with that, I will turn it over to Esben. He's going to talk us through NDR, and I'll see you later for a little bit of a demo.
Yes.
Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Yes, so I'm gonna deep dive a bit into NDR and why it matters. And I guess why it matters, Paul actually already touched upon that. For those of you who are not really familiar with the NDR term, it stands for Network Detection and Response. And prior to this term being, I think, kind of put into the market by Gartner, it was more IDS, IPS solutions that provided some of these insights what NDR does, this deep insight into the packages, the traffic that is running within your network. But continue on Paul's why it matters. It's really this last defense, because be assured your network will be breached at some point, no matter what. If you have the next generation firewalls, the best antivirus, EDR, also endpoint protection in place, maybe even SIEM for that matter. But NDR will be there, as Paul said. You cannot evade it. You cannot avoid it. It will see if something suspicious is going on in the network. Also, if the hacker has been luring within the network maybe for several hundred days, it will still see it and see when the hacker starts to do some reconnaissance, some lateral movement, which are signs of something suspicious is going on in the network. So we truly recommend to add NDR to your security stack for monitoring your infrastructure. And yeah, let me deep dive a bit more into our NDR technology to give you the insights how it works. So the Logpoint NDR solution consists of different building blocks. First of all, we need the appliances. They are truly important for receiving the data and analyzing the data. So we work with both physical appliances and virtual appliances, and customers can, depending on their infrastructure, have multiple of those or maybe only one. It really depends on how they can grab the traffic and analyze it. But within the different appliances, there's a detection engine analyzing the data. It creates notifications with a high, medium, low severity. We also have something called chain of events, where we put these notifications, or you could also call it use cases, into chains in order to see how do they actually connect. Something Paul will speak about as well. And connected to the appliances, we have the Logpoint Central Management Platform, which can either be in the cloud, or you as a partner or an end customer can choose to host it on-prem in your own environment. And this will serve as the centralized point where you can actually do some correlation across, if you're a large organization, across multiple appliances, and you can see your alerts, notifications in an aggregated way. So these are the high-level building blocks of our NDR. Continuing, NDR, what it all starts with is us getting visibility into what is going on in the network. We are analyzing the packages which are being sent forth and back from different devices within the infrastructure. And the appliances I mentioned could, for instance, sit on the core switch in order to grab all the traffic and analyze it using the mirror port. And just to reassure you, we also work in a hybrid environment, meaning if you have some cloud, for instance, Azure Cloud, you can also spin up a virtual appliance in the cloud, and thereby adding cloud to your scope as well. So what do we actually do when we analyze? We do what is called a full protocol analysis. We get a full copy of the traffic and really analyze everything in real time. And the fact that we get a full copy of the traffic and do this full protocol analysis gives us this ability to also get what is called a full packet capture, or PCAP, which for those of you who are doing forensics is extremely important, because then you can really deep dive into incidents using this package of data, really giving all the insights on what happened during an incident. And you can analyze this in tools like Wiresharks or other forensic tools. 2-3 more points before I continue. The scope of NDR is really holistic. So we monitor the full infrastructure, meaning everything that has an IP address and communicates and create packages. So we are talking IT, IoT, OT, IOMT, as also medical devices, for instance. Everything that creates traffic is being analyzed and mapped. So you get really full visibility of all devices communicating within your infrastructure. And the really, really great thing about NDR is also it's agentless. And for the NDR appliances, what's also really, really important to understand is that all the analysis, and I will of course come to what are we doing in order to analyze, is taking place on the appliances, meaning they're quite powerful, but it also means that you as a customer or as a partner of ours, you have full data governance, because all the data is analyzed on the appliances, and the metadata, the raw data, stays on these appliances. Good. Continuing around the detection. So we have 100 use cases out of the box, triggering different kinds of notifications. I'll of course give you more examples of that, what that is. But we have two engines. We have an machine learning AI engine, which we have been maturing for the last almost 10 years. So that is one leg, which is of course really, really good at finding anomalies, something that stands out within your network. And the other engine is our signature and script models, as a more static models. And we also continuously receive on a daily basis a live threat intelligence feed from Alienwald. So for instance, for Black Match IP, that is continuously updated and provided to your solution. And you actually have the possibility to integrate your own IUC lists. We also have MISP integration. So there are lots of possibilities for you to enhance the detection as well. So that's the detection part. Then we have the AI prevent as well, as it says here on the slide. So one of the uniquenesses of NDR is that we can really respond in near real time. That allows us to help prevent attacks like ransomware. And the prevent functionality is agentless, so that we don't need any agents installed, and can actually block a ransomware attack. For instance, if a laptop is being compromised and used to maybe trying to encrypt a lot of file on a file share, then we can actually within milliseconds see that and block that specific device, sort of spoofing the IP address to make it very quick. So we have the advanced detection capabilities, but we also have the automated prevent capabilities, which is really also important in today's threat landscape, because some specific hacker attacks are happening within milliseconds, and even the best SOC or SOC analysts or security people cannot react that fast. So you need something automated to complement that. And that is our prevent functionality. So these 100 use cases, you could high level divide them into 4 categories. So we have the anomaly detection engine, which covers 8 really, really powerful use cases with things that are happening that is not normal within the network. You can read here yourself what those are, and reach out to us if you want more info on that. Then we have some of the more classic attack indicators, the port scans, the ARP scans, the address scans, which Paul touched very briefly on. So these are really, really hands-on cybersecurity value you get immediately out of the box when you utilize NDR. And then you have some really nice add-ons, which are, you could say, is maybe even more preventive in its sense. That is providing insights into vulnerabilities around network hardening. If you're using weak encryption keys, old encryption, SSL, TLS, that is not the latest standard. And the same goes for server and client compliance. If there are any old certificates that has expired, these pose a threat. Also, if you organization maybe not allow to use Dropbox or Google Cloud, you can even have notifications popping up and telling you now these tools are trying to be used in your organization. So you can really see it's a broad range of detections, and we will send you an email after the webinar where we can also add the link to the full list of the 100 use cases, so you can have a look. And just touching upon use cases on a bit more high level, you could say, based on our experience when we talk to our customers, our partners, these 6 use cases on a high level are usually what is top of mind with them, and what they are really, really cautious about and trying to help their customers with, or you as a customer, to avoid these things. So ransomware attacks as a SMB, suspicious file renaming, it could be, we talked about that, how to avoid that. And a sign of that could also be that darknet or Tor activity is detected being used within the organization, because it can be used to cover a ransomware attack. Data exfiltration, again, darknet, Tornet activity actually could be sign of this. It could also be large transfer of data both to external and internal host. Is definitely a possibility. Then insider threats. I think many organizations these times are nervous about that possibility. And for that, our anomaly engine, also our AI engine, is super, super good at finding those things that stands out, which are not normal activity within your network. So the AI engine sort of creates its own baseline of what is normal behavior within the network. Abnormal behavior, again, of course, I would almost say it's our 8 very powerful AI use cases. And 0 days, of course, we cannot tell now you have this specific 0 day. That's in the name of a 0 day. But both our anomaly and our script use cases can point at activity in the network that could definitely be a 0 day and could be highlighted to you at a very early stage in order for you to avoid being hit by a 0 day. And compliance, I will come back to that in a sec, because today, obviously also this being a SIEM talk as well, compliance is essential as well. Chain of events, very briefly. Of course, we can look at the incidents individually, the 100 use cases, but sometimes it really also makes sense to look at some certain events in a chain that might highlight suspicious activity at an early stage in order to see something evolving into a high alert. And then if you can find that behavior at an earlier stage, then of course that is really, really meaningful. And I think maybe Paul will give a shout out on that as well when he talks. So that is one of our latest features, which we really recommend you looking into if you're interested in talking NDR with us. This is just to sum up the engine. I think I won't go over this. Maybe only thing to add here, the notification engine, the notifications use cases created. We have an open REST API for that, meaning, of course, we have a native integration to Logpoint SIEM, that's for sure. But potentially you could also ingest alerts from the NDR technology to other vendors. So we're really trying to be, we are an agnostic. That's what I wanted to say in that sense. And compliance, I think NIS2 is of course very much on all on the agenda of almost all organizations, and NDR really provides insight on helping you comply with risk management, business continuity, the corporate accountability, where the management are being held accountable now if they don't do appropriate cybersecurity things, protecting the organization, and then of course also the reporting. So of course we contribute to the compliance picture or puzzle, if you want, by giving you this deep knowledge of what is going on within your network, which only NDR can do. And then the time to value with NDR, for those who are interested on that topic, basically when you plug in an appliance, the cable, and you receive the data, it immediately gives you value, because immediately it will trigger the use cases, the notifications to highlight if something is out of tune, if not, it's not right, looking for suspicious activity. And already after 2 to 3 weeks, the machine learning engine has made an automated baselining of what is normal behavior. And then, yes, you still have to do a bit of whitelisting yourself, because you might have something that is noisy within your network, vulnerability scanners and the likes. But then you're actually set to go and decide where in the network would you like to use to prevent functionality, and set that up specifically to help you avoid these catastrophic incidents like ransomware, which is of course top of mind. And then you're finished with the baselining, the system is live, and obviously you can have the integration to the SIEM. And I think that is the key word, actually. Handing over to Paul to elaborate, okay, how does NDR actually complement SIEM? Because Paul has the better SIEM knowledge than I have. So I will stop sharing, Paul.
Yep, I should be sharing now. Let me just, hopefully you can see. Oh, I've got the wrong slide. There we go. That was good. Hopefully we've got the same slide now. So
all good.
I shall continue with a couple of slides, and then we'll go straight into the demo. So really what I wanted to do, I'm going to show you how you link the NDR to Logpoint, and I'll do that as part of the demo. What I do want to make sure that you guys understand is just our methodology for these things. So on the right-hand side, we're looking pretty much at the standard, what we call SOC visibility triad, which is a SIEM and NDR in our case. So we've got a single vendor for that. So you come to a single place. But for EDR, essentially, we're going to play nice with all the EDRs. You just saw recently that we released a version of Microsoft Defender XDR, which is basically linked straight to Microsoft and collects events and incidents from Microsoft, actually with a link back to Microsoft. So if you want to do deep dive, you can bring those events in. You're going to see that NDR works in exactly the same way. So NDR is going to detect stuff that it sees on the network. Any notifications that it has, it will send them over, which get imported into Logpoint as incidents. So we can look at that. But I'll start by looking at the NDR and then show you how to make the two things play nice together, and then we'll look at the SIEM side to get the bigger picture. But on the left is just a summary of the different things that Esben's already spoken about. Main point from my perspective is you can't avoid it. So you can encrypt, but like I said, that's suspicious in itself. But it's there on your network. It sees everything that goes past. We can see which IP address it came from to. Doesn't matter how much you encrypted it, we can see all that stuff. And then that gives you a basis to go and do proper threat hunting, perhaps on the SIEM side. But on the NDR side, actually the 0.7 there, you've got a way of capturing PCAP and also metadata for all of these different notifications that it sees. So if you want to see actually packet by packet what happened, you can go see that too. So I'll try and show all of that. I'll try and keep it to about 10 minutes. Let's see how we go. Before we do that, I just want to do a quick plug for Academy. So there is Logpoint certified NDR training on Academy. So please do sign up for that. Right now it's free. So talk to your sales guys about how you can get that certification course, and that will tell you everything about how NDR works. It's got practical. You can try different types of attack and see what it sees and what it doesn't see and so on, and get a feel for how that would work. And then we've got all of the other certification courses in the middle here, which are on the SIEM side. There's also free masterclasses. So on the right-hand side, if you log in as a customer or a partner, you will get access to all of the masterclasses. I would probably add this as a masterclass. I'll rewrite it, but add it as a masterclass a little bit in a month or two, perhaps. But I just want to point out things like the Microsoft Logging Masterclass, which is a fairly recent release that we've just done, which incorporates the XDR Defender. So let's get on to the demo. So let me shut this down, and we can look at the demo. So hopefully what you can see is on the NDR side, we're just looking at the overview right now, so you can see which data is collected. One of the things NDR does is it sees which assets are active in the network, and it can track those assets, and you can get a readout of what's going on, what it's suddenly discovered in the last 24 hours. In this case, because we've got in a lot of that things, we do fake data, so it's like replaying scripts. So suddenly it's discovered another 700 assets. Obviously, that's not real world. If you saw that in your network, you'd be worried, and you'd probably want to go investigate. We'll look at chain of events too, so I'll probably start with that in just a moment. So you'll see on the left-hand side, here's how you can configure AI detect and AI prevent. Prevent is just a toggle switch. You're going to decide which things you want to prevent, and you just click it on. It's as simple as that, more or less. And that will either do TCP reset, or it will work with your software-defined networks if you've got that. On the AI detect side, you'll see you've got notifications, chain of events. Network assets, maybe I start with that because this is what it's discovered. So the 725 things it had discovered, and it will tell you the different hosts. It will try and do OS detection as well. In this case, it hasn't really spotted much, but when you actually try this on the course, you'll see that it is fairly good with detecting OS stuff. This is because it's replaying traffic, so not quite the same thing. Let's start with chain of events though, because I think this is very interesting. So the way NDR works is you take a copy of your packet from the switch, or you have a real physical tap, you send that traffic over to NDR. There's no config to be done on NDR side. So you're just going to put it on your network, it goes in as a black box, and then it sees what it sees. And what it sees, it will try and put it together. So let's start with chain of events. So you see here that I've got 5 different chains, and I'll go with the one at the top because this is the latest and greatest. And it tells you the phases that you've got, and it gives you a summary of what it sees. So in this case, we start with an ARP scan, then it moves to some kind of user enumeration with Kerberos. It's done some kind of match. So this is the IOCs you can add to the box. You can basically say which IP addresses, either you can focus on it or alert if we see something from it. And then you've got RDP outgoing connections. So it kind of indicates how this particular attack would go. So if I want to see the chain, then see down here on the bottom right, I've got chain details. So I can click on that. And this is the bit I kind of like. So what it does here is it split it into the different attack phases. So the reconnaissance phase, it's ARP scans, and there's a port scan coming up there. At the exploit line, we've got some brute forcing, you've got some Kerberos user enumeration. You can see that's repeating itself more or less. On the execute phase, well, there's some suspicious file renaming, DNS tunneling, there's RDP outgoing connection. The DNS tunneling is quite nice. It's a good way of exfiltrating data. And then we've got a maintain phase, which is the blacklist that we were seeing at the top. So you get a feel for when stuff is happening. So when the different phases of the attack happen, and then what happens at each thing. You saw as I mouse over this stuff, it's coming up and just telling me what these attacks are. I can click on it too. So if I click on a little spot, you'll see on the right-hand side, it's got the details of what happened. So in this case, it's brute force internal to external. I've got a source IP destination where it's gone to. And what I can do here is click notification details. And if I click that, what will happen is it spins up the notification. And on the right-hand side, this is showing me the metadata. So basically what happens here is it's telling me this is what's going on with my different connections. So I suppose it's not quite a full packet capture, but it's giving you the metadata of you know, the overview of what's going on. You can see some short description, which port it was using, if there were cookies and so on. I can click on the description details here, which will give me a full-blown list. So this is kind of nice. You can go in, you get a good feel for what's actually happening with this little piece of traffic. So it's fairly in-depth into what I can see. And for those of you that want the real PCAP, you can do that as well. So if you see here on the left-hand side, I've got a way to just download the PCAP. So if I click on it, what it will do is, oh, I won't be able to open it, it's going to extract it. And I can double click it, this will take me into Wireshark. So now I've got the PCAP and I can look at the different lines in the PCAP. And this is just, you know, proper Wireshark-based packet forensics. So you guys can use your own systems for this. There's online systems to do the same thing. But I've got now a full detail of what's going on in my network, which is quite nice. So you can see fairly quickly, I can go from an overview of what's going on, drilling down to the individual details, and then basically I can go into there and see what's what. So let me just, I need to get rid of that download. There we go. I'm not going to show you anything else with this side. I just wanted you to get a feel the fact that we go from everything from an overview and a timeline over to the you know, as deep as you want to go into these packets. What I will do is show you how you link this stuff to the SIEM, and then we'll move over to the SIEM and see what we can see on that side. So if I go to the settings, you can see I've already got Logpoint integration configuration. So it's part of the settings. You can just come up with it real quick. I can click the plus. I can show you this, but this is actually a real system, so I probably don't want to do that. But you can choose the config. So I've got links to Sentinel as well. That's nice. Okay, so we've got Logpoint, give it a name, give it a host. On the Logpoint side, what will happen is you install essentially a listener, and that listener will have an API key which will play back to you. And pretty much that's all you need to do. So you put in the IP of the host, the API key, the subscriptions is which kind of alerts you want to send over. So if you just want to do high and medium or everything, it's up to you. It will send out all of these things depending on what you went and configured. So that's kind of nice too. And at the bottom there, you've got a little test button. So I can actually send out a test notification. It will send something over to SIEM so I can actually test my integration works. So that's all kind of nice. So I won't touch this anymore. Let's go over to the SIEM side and see how these notifications go in. So before I do that, just to remind you what I mean by notification, it's all of this stuff. So anything that it's spotted comes up as an alert, or what they call a notification. And then it will send those details. Every single one of these will get sent over to the SIEM. And the way that works is it's going to take the log data it sees in the notification, and it's going to normalize that log data and put it in as a Logpoint log as well. So let's go and have a look on the Logpoint side. Let's see what it looks like there. So if I go to my Logpoint demos, this is the same system. I'm going to go over to incidents because that's where I start. It says waiting for it to come up. Actually, all of this stuff is the stuff that comes from the NDR. So you can see some of this is the incident data that we got in. It will be combined with all of the other things that you've ingested into the SIEM too. So NDR is one log source that we bring in, and then you've got all of the others, and then the game is to go searching for those different things. So I can, for example, if I search for RDP, I can get the ones that, if you recall, I had brute forces, I had outgoing connection, and these kind of things. And then I can look at the data for that. So it gives me a starting point to see what's going on. So you can see it's the same host name here, so I'll put that on the clipboard because I might need that. If I click on incident data, you'll see that I've got a summary. So what the notification ID was, source address, destination, a description of what happened. This investigate button will take you back to the NDR side. So all that does is it will be the equivalent of going over here to the notification, and then I click on the notification. It's going to show you this view. So that's very nice. You can quickly go from one system to the other and see what's going on. What you can also do is on the Logpoint side, as you might expect, is I click View Data. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me the log data. So this is the normalized log data that came from the NDR. So you can see that we know what the device name is, the collector type. So there's just a collector called Mooning Collector on the Logpoint side. We've got a source address that we can go after, and then there's a few other things that maybe we look at. So what I'll do at this point is if I just click on source address just to get it up there in the scan, I'm going to get rid of all that other stuff. Let's just see anything coming from source address, and probably let's do in the last 24 hours so I can get a big chunk of data here. So you can see this is everything coming from that source address now on the Logpoint side. I can do things like, well, we can do the standard stuff that you probably would want to do on Logpoint. So chart count by, and then we want source address, destination address. Let's get the, what do I want to see? I would like to see, maybe not the repo. I want to see why can't I find what I need to find? That's interesting. Oh, it's okay. I was gonna just grab, I don't want the detection ID. I'm trying to see what I don't want this either. I was going to get, oh, there's a description. Okay, there it is. So let's get description and let's get norm ID as well. So if I grab those things, what this is doing is essentially giving me all of the logs with the different normalizer IDs and just the details of those different things. So basically what I have now is a summary of each of that stuff and the count. So it's just a summary of all the different types of alert that I've got. So these port scans are quite weird because the names are quite long, but where you go further down, you can see, you know, a decent description of what's going on. The norm ID, if you had a normal network and you had EDR and maybe server logging from these different hosts, you'd actually be able to see different normalizer IDs, so you know how it's come up, and then you can see the different counts of these different logs. So it gives you something to go after. And so basically that's the idea. You can start looking through these different types of logs. You're going to just do different search queries to do the same thing and narrow down on actually what's going on across the network. Or what you can do is, I'll show you something that we kind of like to do as well, is if I go to search templates, this is something you can write yourself because this is just queries. So what we could do is you can go to search templates, and the idea of search templates, if you guys don't know, on the Logpoint side, it's each of these different widgets that you have has a query. And so what I've done here is different widgets for different types of alerts. So it's something that can be written by professional services, or you guys can go and write it yourself. But you can see that in the case of credential misuse that I've got here, I can look at the different IP addresses where I've got multiple logins from the external source and see where they came from. I can see people doing password guessing attempts and so on. And then what's going on with the brute force stuff. So what's the source? What was the action? Where it's going to and so on. So you get some kind of feel for what's going on simply because you're gathering NDR data and then you've got all of the other Logpoint data that you've gathered from all around the network. So when you put all of this together, hopefully you get a picture of everything that's going through between the two systems, and then you can get I don't want to say the word holistic because I hate it, but it's kind of a, you know, an overall view of the activity that's going on your network, and you have something to go after when you're searching for different things. So I think with that, I'm going to stop. So it's 10:15 now. So I'll stop my share. Should we just go back and wrap up the session if there was any Q&A or anything like that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. This was super interesting. We have a couple of questions, so let's just take the ones that we have, and then I'm sorry, guys, we will maybe run out of time, but you will get the recording in an email afterwards as well. So if you don't have time to hang on, we can, you will be able to see the answers in there. But so we got one question. So it says, does Logpoint automatically set up alarms pulled from the NDR, or are these alarms you have manually configured?
It automatically sets them up. So the integration, you link the two things. Anything that comes up with a notification on the NDR side is also an incident on the Logpoint side with a link back. So that's basically how that works. It's automatically done once you've got the collector set up and you've linked the two things together.
Okay. And then another question. So it says, do you have a pre-qualification for assessing the NDR training?
You just need to talk to your sales guy.
Okay.
So he'll get you a sales code. At the moment, he'll do it at 100% discount. So he'll get you a link to it, and then just basically get the link to it and access it.
Perfect. How do you implement zero-day vulnerabilities in an NDR system? Do the systems scan other systems like servers and switches?
It's not scanning anything, so we just sit and listen. So any switch traffic that comes through, you give us a copy of that traffic, and that's how it does the analysis and sees what's going on. To be specific, though, we're not going to spot anything zero-day. We're just going to spot weird activity on the network that you need to just look at. Essentially, it's that simple.
Okay. And a new question, how does setting up listening on Logpoint work when you have a director set up? Would you need to listen to each LP, or can you listen to just the director for a single listening point?
On the NDR, so the NDR is not part of directory at this point. So it's actually out of scope for directory. NDR has its own global management called Mogensen Central, or NDR Central, I guess we call it these days. So yes, it's its own very scalable management, but it's a different system to directory, and we'll look in the coming months as to how we merge those two systems together. So yeah, currently chalk and cheese.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, there was another question. Do we have a demo system for NDR demo? And yet the answer is yes. It was the demo system that I showed you, which is called ndrdemo.logpoint.com.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Okay, good. Anything else? Let me see here. Got that one. I think that was what we had. Perfect. Thank you so much, Paul and Esben. This has been really great. As mentioned, you will all receive an email with the recording and the details that both Esben and Paul has talked about. And thank you so much for joining. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, and yeah, thank you.